Planning to study in November 2025 intake? Well, this is a video you need to watch as we are going to cover some important information regarding November 2025 intake, including some policy updates that affect November 2025 students, some important deadlines you need to be mindful of, current student visa processing timeframes, and plenty of other useful information. So without wasting much time, let's get into the topic. So first of all, what is a November intake? It's also known as summer semester. It's the third intake after February and July. So just keep in mind that not all universities and not all courses are offered during this intake. Ideally, it's for the students who have missed July intake, or their visa has been delayed, or some students who need to apply as soon as possible. In fact, I came to Australia on student visa during November intake as well. I actually applied for July intake. Unfortunately, my visa got delayed, so I had to wait and come in November intake. Now let's get into the policies that affect the November 2025 applicants. The first major one is increase in student visa fee. As you know, from 1st of July, Australian government has increased student visa fee from $1,600 to 2,000 Australian dollars. And November intake is probably one of the first intake that gets affected with this change. Now also importantly, you are still part of that 270,000 student allocations that were allocated previously for the year 2025. You are not part of that new allocations for 295,000 that are announced for the year 2026, and this is very important for you to know about. The reason being that the ministerial direction 111 is still dictating the term for student visa processing, and you are going to be the last cohort for the year 2025. As for the ministerial direction 111, visas are processed faster for up to the 80% of the educational institute's allocation. So if you fall within the 80% of the allocation that these institutions or universities were given, your visas get processed faster. And after reaching that 80% of the allocations, the rest of the visas are processed at a standard pace, which we can consider it like slower pace. And you being the last intake of the year, that 80% number plays a huge role. And fingers crossed that your university or institute is still within that 80% of the allocation numbers. Although it's quite likely that the universities that are offering that November intake, they would still have some room available for these students. That's probably the reason they're accepting your application. And another thing is in regards to the English test requirements. Specifically speaking, the PTE scores were updated from the 7th of August 2025. So if you haven't taken your English test, the chances are that you may have to look at the new updated scores, especially if you are going to undertake PTE exam for your English. And there were some additional English tests that were introduced for the visas in Australia. So if you haven't given the English test yet, it might be a good idea to look at some of those other English test options as well. Now let's move on to the next part, which is regarding important dates and deadlines. So for the November 2025 intake, the applications open during May and it will close around the end of August. Some universities might close the applications a little bit earlier, while others might even stretch it into September. So usually the application deadlines fall anywhere in August or in September. Ideally, you should check with your preferred institute when they are closing their applications for the November intake. And some universities might close the application even earlier if the seats are already full. So if they know that they are reaching the allocations, they might close the applications earlier as well. So suggestion would be to apply as soon as possible. Fingers crossed for that. Also, a very important tip here, when you are putting your application with your university, if you are planning to apply for any scholarship for that university, please do it at the same time of your application, because a lot of universities will accept the scholarship requests at the same time of your application. And classes for November intake can start anywhere from late October to early to mid-November. And the semester usually ends around February following year, which will be February 2026 for you. Now, here are some quick benefits and drawbacks of studying in November intake. Let's talk about the benefits first. The first one is it's a smaller intake. So comparing to February and July, November is much smaller intake, as not many universities and not all the courses offered during this intake. The reason being quite simple, that most of the university students take a semester off during the summer, which means most of the academics and students are not on campus. That is also helpful because it's much easier to settle, especially for new students, as there's not too much rush and teachers can pay more attention to those students who are studying in that specific semester. Because it's the summertime, another benefit is jobs availability. Many people are on holidays, and usually at the end of the year during Christmas time or the start of a new year as well, you get a hand on few part-time jobs. So that's a good time to arrive in Australia and look for part-time work during those time frames. Student accommodation is also a bit easier to access during this intake. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of students take time off during this semester. They either go back to their home countries or they might be traveling. So there is opportunity for you to get hand on a decent student accommodation during this semester. And last but not the least, my personal favorite, which is the weather. Weather in Australia is much better from November onwards, as the summer starts in around December time, so it's a perfect time to arrive in Australia and experience Australian summer. However, here are a few drawbacks about this November intake. First one, the campuses are usually quieter. As most of the students leave for holidays, you will see that the campus is much more quieter than what it will be during February or July. And that will also mean that the university will be less lively, with a lot of academics and students taking time off. Another drawback is the orientation is not as fancy as it is in February and July intake. There will be orientation sessions, but it will not be as fancy as it is in the other intakes. And the study options are usually quite limited during this intake, with limited number of universities offering limited number of courses during this intake. Now let's look at the student visa processing timeframes as per the Department of Home Affairs website. So we will refer to the Department of Home Affairs website in order to check the student visa processing timeframes. So currently, on an average, it is taking around 25 days to get most of the student visas processed in Australia. This information is available publicly on the Department of Home Affairs website. We'll put a link of that in the description box below if you would like to check it. Just keep in mind, this is just an average student visa processing. It varies significantly depending upon the type of course you are planning to study here. So you can check the student visa processing timeframes based on specific type of courses. For example, if you are planning to study ALICOs, Foreign Affairs, Defense, or non-award courses, the student visa processing is quite fast. Higher education students are in a second category. Their visas still get processed faster, but a bit slower than the other category that I just mentioned. The worst of the lot is the vocational education students. So students who are planning to apply for vocational education sector, their visa processing time is out of this world. I just checked the numbers today that 50% of those student visa applications specifically for vocational education is taking around 6 months, comparing that to 23 days for higher education. That is just mind-blowing. Again, we will leave a link of Department of Home Affairs website where you can check this information yourself as well. And just keep in mind, by the time you check the website, the numbers might change again, as Department of Home Affairs try to update it regularly. Now, I suggest you to pay attention to some of the common reasons why the visas could get delayed. That includes things like putting late applications. So try to put your application as early as possible. Not meeting the financial evidence. So make sure that you check through whether you are meeting the financial requirements or not. Failing the genuine student requirement. This seems to be one of the most common reasons why many of the students' visas get delayed or rejected. And just not submitting a completed application. So make sure to provide all the documentation and complete the application carefully. By the way, we are not ending the video yet. Here is a quick 8-week action plan if you are planning to study in November 2025 intake. So from now to the end of August, which is around a couple of weeks, shortlist and apply for the university. Get all your documents ready like your passport, transcript, SOP, resume and financials, and get English test sorted, which is try to book or submit your IELTS, PTE, TOEFL, whatever test you're taking. Then from early to mid-September, which is week 3 to week 4, track your application and respond quickly if university needs anything. Accept the offer and then pay your fee. After doing that, you will get your confirmation of enrollment, COE, which is what you need to apply for your student visa. Now from mid-September to late September, which is week 5 or 6, make sure to apply for your visa with all the required documents. That includes COE, overseas student health cover, financial proof, and your genuine student requirement. And from late September to early October, which is around your week 7, start researching your accommodation and flights, book flight after visa approval, attend any pre-departure session that is available from your university or your agent. And from early to mid-October, once you have your visas sorted, then pack your bags and prepare your documents that you need to bring, and also plan your arrival as well. The idea would be to at least arrive 1 week prior to the start of your classes. Obviously, this is just a general guideline. Your situation might be different, so follow along as whatever fits you best. You might like to do some things earlier or later depending upon your situation. But this gives you a little bit of an idea on things you could do in the next few weeks. Now the last part is about your arrival and the first month in Australia. So as I mentioned earlier, make sure to plan your arrival, how you're going to get from the airport to your accommodation. So for that, I also suggest you to book your short-term accommodation before arriving into Australia. It can be a bit of a challenge to get an accommodation right away after arriving, so booking it for 1 or 2 weeks ahead of time will help. Also, after arriving, make sure to activate your overseas student health cover. A lot of the times you don't need to do anything, but it is still a good idea to check with your overseas student health cover provider if you need to register or provide them some other details like your new home address. And make sure to get a local SIM card after arriving. You don't want to be using one from overseas as the roaming charges could be quite expensive here. And also try to open a bank account as soon as possible. Ideally, you should bring some money with you. Depending upon your situation, you could bring anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. Obviously, if you need more, you can ask your parents to send it over later. And as soon as you open a bank account, make sure to put that money into your bank account because most of the people and businesses don't use cash here. Also, make sure to attend the orientation session that your university organized for you. And don't forget to enroll into your classes and get your student card as well. And after that, you start looking for your job as well. In order to get job, it's very important to apply for your TFN, tax file number as well. And once you have arrived, it is a good idea to start looking for long-term accommodation. So hopefully this video covers enough information for you if you are planning to study here in November 2025 intake. We would love to hear from you which university and which course are you planning to study in November 2025. We usually create a Google Sheet that helps students to find their travel mates, their uni mates, or sometimes even housemates before arriving into Australia. We'll try to post that in the description box below, so make sure to share it with your friends as well. Now, if you are arriving in Australia soon, I suggest you to check this video here, where I explain about how to quickly clear the immigration in Australia. As you know, you need to clear immigration through any Australian airport before entering into Australia. Here I explain how to do that quickly. So click the video there, and I'll see you there.